Hi everyone, this is Ron Pereira with Gemba Academy, and I'd like to welcome you to our first webinar focused on visual management, what good looks like. I'd like to introduce today's presenter. So Mike Wroblewski is a senior operations consultant at Kaizen Institute USA with over 25 years of lean transformation experience, strong technical skills, and a passion for teaching Kaizen across the world. Well, during his career, Mike has held various management and leadership positions, including industrial engineer, manufacturing manager, and director of operations. Mike's journey into lean began in 1985 while working for the Hillrom Company. Now, under the watchful eye of Mr. Shigeo Shingo, Mike successfully improved the die changeover from 45 minutes to less than 5 minutes. Now, Mike has a master's in manufacturing management from the GMI Engineering and Management Institute, a bachelor's in production and operations management from Miami University, and a Six Sigma Black Belt certification. And on the web, Mike is the creator and author of the Got Boondoggle website featuring insights and practical articles on lean manufacturing and Six Sigma methodologies. So, without further delay, I'd like to go ahead and turn it all over to Mike.
Thank you, Ron, and welcome to our first webinar on visual management. Again, my name is Mike Wroblewski. I'm a lean sensei, and don't get too worried about the term sensei. It's a Japanese word that means teacher. I've been teaching lean for several years, and I enjoy the aspects of all the different components of lean, teaching what I've seen and learned, and helping people develop and grow on the lean journey. But one thing about being a lean sensei is that I'm also a student just like you. So as I go to see other companies, as I implement Kaizen, I'm learning as well as teaching at the same time. So as being a lean sensei, I'm forever a student of lean. And from that perspective, I'm going to share with you today a lot of the things that I've learned through the years on visual management and a lot of great examples of what good looks like, so you can see how we can use this concept and tool of visual management to help us on our lean journey, and then see how we can even improve upon that as we talk through these examples. So let's go through some definite examples of visual management. Well, first, as you can see, my last name is Polish. All through my life, people have had trouble pronouncing my last name. So I've come up with this visual aid for visual management to help you learn how to pronounce my last name. Looking at the pictures, you can see it's pronounced Wroblewski. So it's very simple. So if you want, try it. By using these pictures, you can easily now know how to pronounce my last name. Although this is a good technique in visual management, but one of the first keys to understanding visual management is that we must understand what the problem is first before we apply a cool solution that we've learned in our lean journey. In this case, the problem is people see how my last name is spelled and can't figure out how to pronounce it. So knowing the problem, I've come up with a solution for that. And believe me, it works. I've used this in plenty of presentations, and people have always remembered how to pronounce my last name. Now let's talk about visual management. Visual management is a concept, also a tool of making a workplace, in particular processes within our workplace, more effective, and have that effect at a glance using visual signals, controls, and information. Very simply, what we want to do is enhance the flow of our process, enhance the quality of our process, and enhance the flow by using visual management and signals. So what is visual management more? It's about seeing. We want to make sure that we can see what the problems are, make those problems visible. We certainly want to improve communication, namely what needs to be done. Seeing the waste is important. And does visual management help us in seeing the standard? Seeing current status. Are we ahead or behind our current projected production? Are we seeing the gaps or improvement opportunities? These are all things that good visual management will help us with. And as you see through the examples, we're going to go through some bad and some good, and we'll also show you some guidelines and tips, so maybe you can learn from this. Now, communication direction is very important when you think about visual management. Most people look at the traditional up and down the ladder. As you know, top management sending information down to the hourly workforce, and then information coming up from the staff to top management. That trajectory of information is very present, and we usually spend most of our time looking at visual management communication where it's top down. Management saying this is what direction you need to go. This is our values. This is what work needs to be done. We don't do enough of having the information go from the bottom up. Also, one area of communication that's important is along the value stream. Horizontal communication. How do we go from the supplier right through the processes all the way to the customer? How can we share information across the value stream? Because that's where the value is flowing. So wouldn't it be a good idea to make sure that our visual management and our communication is used to enhance the horizontal communication? So in reality, when we look at our visual management, we want to look at both the vertical communication and the horizontal communication. Both are important, but let's concentrate more on the horizontal because that's one area that I find a lot of weakness in many companies along the lean journey. Now there are many types of visual controls. You can see them very much in a 5S or 6S program. When you have a total productive maintenance program in TPM, you'll see that. Kanban is another great visual control system. If you use A3s for problem solving or A3s for decision making, even A3s when you do a root cause investigation on a safety incident, or you're looking at a project that you're working on, those forms are a form of visual control. Idea boards or Kaizen boards are also visual control. If you have daily huddle meetings, that's a visual control. Performance metrics, probably most companies do have this. How are we doing on quality? How are we doing on our cost and delivery? Those graphs and bar charts and metrics are all posted. That's a form of visual control. Wayfinding is another good important visual control. How do you find your way around the location, be it a hospital or be it in the office? And there are many, many other ways that you can use visual controls, and we'll show examples of many of these as we go through. Now, poor visual management, if you have poor visual management, what happens is people are confused. They tend to be ignored, or that you don't have any visual management at all, so it's non-existent. It could be misunderstood. If it's outdated or vague and it can be intimidated, basically you have a broken system. And that broken system of visual management definitely impedes the flow, and what we want to do is improve the flow through our processes. So let's look at some examples of some poor visual management. What do you think of this sign? This was found in a hospital, and you're, as a patient, walking in from the front door, and this was placed right as you entered in from the parking garage. And most people either are going to see a person or they're going to go to be admitted. And in this case, they see the sign pre-admission clinic office in this direction, and all of a sudden you see this is not admitting. To me, that's confusing. What do you think? How do you think patients are going to feel going through the process if they're trying to find where they need to go in the hospital? Another example, notice this sign, please keep the area clear at all times. Yet you see things stored in the hallway. Now, here's an example of visual management. Obviously, it's some importance to keep this hallway clean and clear because you have a sign there, yet we see things that are in the hallway. And I would question, well, why is that important? If people are putting things in this hallway and you have a sign saying it shouldn't be there, that's obviously a broken system and it's ignored. Here's a good one. I found this at a facility. Do not stack materials on this office, yet you clearly see above the office there are things that are placed there. Now, you may make some assumptions that, well, maybe they're just empty cardboard containers, that that's not a problem. But the sign shows us that we shouldn't be putting anything on the top of the offices. Now we have to think, well, why would it be important not to put things on top of the materials? Well, one thing that would come to my mind is, obviously, it's not built to hold a lot of weight. So if you put weight on top of the office, it would be a dangerous situation to have for the people in the office. So here's an example of visual management that's, again, ignored. Here's an interesting one. This was actually found in a hospital, and you'll notice those markers that are on top of the ceiling. I thought they were kind of unusual. They're sort of a triangle shape, and they're red, and there's a series of them down the hallway. So obviously it's a clear marker of some indication for a visual signal. Yet when I was asking people around the hospital for my own information, for my own knowledge, what that signal was, I could not find anyone in the hospital to tell me what those signals meant. So here's a mystery marker that's placed in the hospital, and for some reason no one knew what it meant. It's been not communicated. So how can we prevent these situations from happening? Here's a good example. Obviously, you see that this company has started a 5S process, and they put the typical shadow board in the drawer so that everything could be located, yet you see it in complete disarray. So this system of visual management, which is well intended, is just not working. So why is that? Why is this not working, and what can we do about it? And is this a poor application? Is it the fact that management's not following up? Is it that the employees didn't have buy-in in the first place, or don't see the purpose or need in this particular visual management system? So those are questions that should prompt us as lean leaders as to trying to figure out how can we get a system of visual management that works and that will help us instead of hinder us. Now, what's wrong with this picture? As you can see, this is a definite quality feedback board, a typical whiteboard, which is well used in a visual management system. You see that they've obviously put down, we're going to track it by hour. You see the EOP, which is end of plant, and then you have internal, and then reasons. But there's nothing on the board. The board's been put up there, but it's not used. And then if you notice there, is it because that there are no markers available? If you notice on the left-hand side, the marker container is completely empty. There are no markers available. And then there's nothing posted around. So here's an attempt at a visual management system that's not being used. So again, we should prompt us to ask questions as we go on our Gemba walk through the facility as why is it the system that was put in that's not working, and what can we do to make it work? Here's an interesting one. This company was doing a 5S, had their evaluation seats posted in the area, which is great. That's what we want to do, share this information. But if you notice, the date is in 2007, and this was found on a board in 2009, and there are no other current pieces of information. So it shows a system that's, again, out of date, and you have this information posted, so it's causing a problem with the process. What kind of message does that send our employees if we have outdated information? And the other information that I see, just out of curiosity, is that the values for the evaluation area were all high. It was all good. If you write down, they only had one miss, and it makes me question how good the 5S process was. Were they just what we call pencil whipping it, which is just filling out the form and throwing it up there and not really actually auditing the area? What happened to our system when we put this up and it doesn't follow through? So that's the indicators that we have definitely problems that we need to fix. Here's one from a company that I visited. This is of course, very dirty press, and it's a 2-operator press. There's an operator on both sides. Now, one of the keys on running a press is if something happens and you have to hit that emergency stop in an event of emergency and hit it fast, which button should you hit? Can you see? Well, and it's really hard to tell. And remember, you've got seconds here now. It's an emergency. What button do we hit? Now, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a red emergency e-stop there. Well, that's for the far side. So the employee on the other side of the machine, it's clear which one. But here we have no red button. How many people would pick the top button, yellow? How many pick the bottom brown button? Well, after doing a little 5S, we noticed that cleaning up the bottom button that was originally brown was actually the red button. That shows you an indication that we have a broken visual system. Clearly, for safety purposes, we should have clear indications where the emergency stops are, just like we need to know where the fire extinguisher is, where the exits are. So that's the first thing we did, was clean this machine up so that it could be at least a safe machine, and then did further PM and clean up on this machine to improve its level of 5S. Now, those were all bad examples. You may have seen them around your facility. You may have seen them at other facilities. So let's talk about the visual management guidelines and tips, some of the things that make good visual management. And let's show some good examples of things that I have seen walking around and show how they're on the track of being a much better visual system. Well, first of all, for a guideline, can someone off the street understand the process in less than 5 minutes? Now, that should be one of the criteria that we have. Can someone off the street understand the process in less than 5 minutes? That means it should be very intuitive, it should be clear, and it should be easy to understand. Look at this example. We all have some form, I would hope, of recycling within our processes, but here's a really good one. Look at the visuals that this company had gone through to show what we're going to collect, how we're going to segregate it, and information about what we're collecting. To me, it seems pretty clear signal as to what waste should go into what document. Also, it prompts people to understand this is what the intended results or behaviors that we should do. And they actually have a pretty good recycling program. In fact, that facility is a 100% landfill-free facility. Nothing of their waste goes to landfills. So I can see how a visual management system like this helps support their initiative. Another guideline is, can you find it in less than 30 seconds? If you're looking for something, can you find it in less than 30 seconds? Now that's an interesting guideline. If we have good visual management, we should know where things are in conjunction with our 5S, a place for everything, everything in its place. Here's a good example of a simple drawer that has things located in. It's not cluttered, and we can grab things very quickly. So as we apply our visual management system, here's one guideline that we could use. Another guideline is use less words, try more pictures. That doesn't mean you have to eliminate the words, but more pictures can be helpful. In this particular case, on the newer vehicles, if you notice on the gas gauge inside on the dashboard, there's a small symbol that will usually show the gas pump and an arrow either left or right. What does that tell us? Well, it tells us which side of the car is the gas cap. And from that, we don't have to worry about when we pull up to the gas pump that if we're on the wrong or right side of our car facing the pump. Before, we'd have to either get out of the car and check, or we have a 50-50 chance if we don't remember from our car, or we have rental cars, which side should we be pulling up to the gas pump. So that's a great visual indicator, especially for many of us that use rental cars or don't drive a normal our car every day. You can also make visual management fun. As I travel around the country, here's an example that I thought was kind of intriguing at one of the hotels that I stayed at. It was a larger complex with a separate side of the building, and it was warning me, don't unload my luggage because my room that is assigned to me could be on the other side. So it would prevent me from having the problem of unloading all my luggage only to load it back into the car, finding out later after I checked in that I'm on the other side of the building, on the far side. So again, this is a fun little indicator, but it shows visual management-wise to help prevent a problem. Would you not agree? Now here's a quick little checklist. If we have good visual management, what are some of the things that I would look for and suggest? Now by no means is this a complete checklist, but here's some good things that I think would be a good baseline to start from to make sure that we have a good visual management system. Well, first of all, if we understand what the problem is, will a visual sign or signal make this process more effective? I would ask that question before I even start throwing up signs and posters everywhere or come up with some system if I don't need it or not. But will it improve the process? Is that my goal? Then I should have a visual signal to help that. Will that help me in my goal? Can you understand the process without asking anybody for additional information? So could I walk up to an area and understand what the flow is, what is happening in the process, what the status is? Do I have to ask somebody for information, or is it easily displayed? Also, is the visual signal current? As you saw from bad examples, we don't want outdated information. Is it in the right location? It makes no sense to have a visual signal in the wrong location. Are visual signals followed? As you saw from some of the bad examples, even though we have a good intention of putting visual signals in, it's not always followed. So we need to check on that. Then, as we put in visual signals in communication, are we using it to sustain our process? Now, as many of us know in the Lean journey, it's great to put in these physical changes. It's great to put in a 5S process. It's great to put in value stream mapping and work on that. But we always have trouble with the sustaining part of Lean on our Lean journey. So can we use visual signals to help us sustain it? Well, I think so. I think visual signals are one of the important things to help sustain a process. But we also have to make sure it's followed up. Now, our visual signals now used for continuous improvement. We don't want just visual signals set to sustain the process, but can we use that as the baseline to make continuous improvement every day, everybody, everywhere? Are visual signals regularly reviewed? How often when you go out to a facility do you look at just what the problem is or someone called you to, or do you actually audit the system? Look at the visual signals. Are they used or not? Maybe that one hospital, if they would have reviewed the visual signals, would have asked, well, maybe we don't need these red triangles up on the ceiling anymore. Do the visual signals make decision-making easier and better? Now, decision-making is one of those hidden tasks that are in our process flow. If you have more decisions, it impedes the process flow. So if you make the decision-making process in your flow easier and better, it will definitely improve the flow. So how can we use visual signals to help us with that? So like I said, this is just the beginning of a checklist of some guidelines that I think we should follow, and we certainly can add to this list, and I'm sure you may have a couple more that you may want to add. Now let's show some good examples. Some are better and some can be even improved. We talked about metric boards or performance boards. Here's an example of a pretty good metric board. I like the use of the color coding, which is a great use of good visuals. You can see that the orange-yellow is in the operational excellence, the green is in financial performance, and then you have the technology leadership in blue. But you notice something else. There's some missing, right? You see some blank screens. You see some missing section on the board. Although this is just a preliminary metric board, this group still has some work to do. And I think it's a great first step of showing good, clear metrics. However, if you wait too long and have still those missing metrics on there, again, you're going to fall into a poor visual management system that just looks pretty. One of the tools that I like using is the hour-by-hour chart. Now, of course, this tool is not used everywhere, but it actually works very good on quick, repetitive assembly line scenarios. In this case, we want to know hour by hour. How are we doing based on our plan to our actual production? So what you can do is show what the schedule is by hour, both for the individual hour, and then do it cumulative so it adds up to the end of the day. And as you clearly see, that the schedule for this particular line is that they want to make 445 units at the end of the shift. So as each hour progresses, they can track how they're doing against the plan. So the actual column in the center, you'll see that they have the 48 and the 60 and the 50. So they're tracking it every hour. But notice the power of red and green. We're all pretty much familiar with the power of red and green with stop signs and stop lights. By using that, you know intuitively that red would necessarily mean stop or bad, and green would be go or good. In this case, you can see without even looking at the number itself how many hours that were on track, how many hours that we weren't. And you can see that there were 3 or 4 hours that we weren't on track, and that because we were not on track at the very beginning of the day, our cumulative numbers took a long time and we needed overtime to catch up. The other important thing is the counter measures that are on the right-hand side. Every time we had a miss, the leaders would write what was the reason so that we can use that for our problem solving. And the other great thing about this is you have indications that it's being reviewed. You have the smiley face put up there saying that was a great job, and you see the signature by the team leader or the manager of the area saying, yes, I've signed this, I reviewed it, I've checked it. So again, here's two-way communication that can be used as a tool to help check to see how we're doing throughout the day, so we don't wait to the end of the day and say, we didn't make our rate, we don't know why, we had problems, you know, same old, same old. But in this case, we can use this tool as in by 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, we can start seeing that we have some issues. What are we going to do about it? And we can start sharing this communication. And if you walked up to this area, any person, any manager, anyone from the area can quickly see are we ahead or behind in this particular area. Value stream maps are a good component of Lean. It's a good idea to keep these value stream maps posted. You can post them in the lunchrooms, you can post them in conference rooms, you can post them right on the shop floor, which is the best place to put it, right where the value stream is operating. In this particular case, you see what the current state is, you see what the future state is, you can share that information with the whole team so that they can see what the progress of where we're going is. If you want to improve this even further, you could put up a white flip chart to the side so people can leave comments. That way you can have it more of a two-way communication instead of one-way communication. But the good thing is they put this on the shop floor. It's there for everyone to see. Here's an example at a facility that has a team board, and they had located a team leader desk right next to the board. So here, right within the cell, you have a team leader station. Very easily, you can see what he's working on. You see the performance metrics that the team is working on, and it's a great, simple, small board for everybody to communicate what's going on at this cell at this location. One of the things about all these boards that we tend to put up is sometimes it gets confusing as to, well, who's responsible for making sure if this is, I got a question or this is not updated. So one good thing you can get into practice is actually each chart or each board should have an owner's name of a person that's responsible for maintaining and updating and following up with this information. So very quickly, if you went to the board in this particular case and you found some discrepancy or found some improvement suggestion or some issue, you know that Alvin White is the person you need to talk to in this case because the owner is clearly labeled there. You can go a step further and actually have a picture of Alvin right here to say, I'm Alvin White and I'm responsible for this board. So that's information that can be shared for everybody. Here's an interesting picture of an open office area. And many of the companies that I'm visiting and clients that we have are looking at how can the open office atmosphere help improve communication. And as you can see, in this particular case, there is a series of desks in a circle here right on the shop floor, and they are experimenting with how to use the open office system. And from this point of view, you can see that there are a lot of visual management going on in this particular area, and I want to share a few of them as we go further. Behind the desk, you'll see this array of boards. What these are department Kaizen boards. So each department has a board that shows with picture and name who the person is responsible for this area and the Kaizens that are going on, and it lists what the actual Kaizen activity is. So very quickly you can see the status of what the processes that they're working on. You can check to see if they're heading behind to their goal of Kaizen. You can see what problems that they're trying to work with and who they're working with it. And again, they use a good portion of pictures of the employees' faces to show these are the ones that are making this happen in this area. We use a lot of glass walls, and glass walls doesn't necessarily mean that it's physically glass. Glass wall means transparent, that you can show it's easily seen. People can see what's going on. And in this glass wall version, you see a sales and marketing wall. Now, how many of you can say that you know currently in your sales and marketing what our status is to sales, how are we trending, what orders or new business are we working on, what projects are we working on, what's our marketing plan, who are our current customers that are in the base, what customers are we no longer doing business with, but what's going on in sales and marketing? Well, here at this company, you can go right back to this glass wall and see all that information. Here's a closer picture. The Hoshin status, it shows them against their plan on the left-hand side so they can see the metrics. And they use also red and green. If they're on target, it would be green, and if they're behind, they would use red. They have Kaizen goals for sales and marketing. Yes, even sales and marketing has Kaizen goals. You see in the center on the left-hand side pictures of the people's faces of who's tracking on what Kaizen events. And in this particular case, they have goals of how many Kaizens that each person in the area is doing. You also have in the center, this is all the new business that they're working on. And each of those cards, although I don't show you a close-up, is a customer. And each customer has information about the customer, the project they're working on, and more detailed information about what that particular relationship is. Again, great visuals for any of us to share and see. And then on the right-hand side, it's actually showing you the current customers, what they're working on. So again, great visual management of showing what's going on in sales and marketing right there in the open for everyone to see. And here's at the same company a finance board. And in this particular case, what I really liked about this board is that they show that their current status is green. And the interesting visual management is that green cash symbol you see there. Well, they actually have three there. They have a green one, a yellow one, and a red one. And what that's saying is, if you see the green one on the board, you don't have to ask, but everything's going good, our cash flow is going pretty good, you are green to go. You can spend money per your budget. Everything's fine. If we see that our cash flow is starting to slow down, they may have to say, all right, we need to check a little bit. Let's change the status to say yellow. And yellow would mean is our cash flow is a little bit in a condition that, we can still spend a budget, but ask first. Check to see if it's all right if we can spend that to our budget, because it's a little tricky right now. And then, of course, the red indicator, what do you think that would mean? Yes, it would mean that cash flow, we have a problem, stop spending any extra money, and only if it's an exact need that we spend that money. So the visual controls of the red and the green and the yellow, it basically tells us how we need to manage, and it shares this information with everybody to see. This is out in the open. This is not stuck in a computer somewhere, and it's not something that the managers talk about and doesn't share with the rest of the company. Hourly employees, everybody sees this status. So I think that's a great visual. Also in this area, you want to identify your area of what area this is. This is line 4, so area ID markers are very clear. And then the other cool thing is, if you notice on the top of this column, they have these cups. And instead of having a fancy and-on light system for a signal system, they just used a green and a red cup. So if you see the green cup, everything's go, everything's good. And then if they have a problem or need help, they switch it to the red cup. Now that system works pretty good, and it's pretty inexpensive, I'd have to say. But then you have to check later, is it actually working? So I think with a good follow-up, that would be a great system that's inexpensive, and if it's working, go for it. In this particular picture, you see improvements. And from this case, you can see the red arrow. And the red arrow is pointing to this particular station that there was a Kaizen that was done here. And although I don't speak Japanese, it's clearly an indicator that something's there for us to see, so we can notice it. In fact, this particular facility has these little red arrows all over the place to highlight, we made an improvement here. There was a Kaizen there. Ask us about this one here. So it's a great way that you can share your Kaizen activity. One of the things that we want to do is when we do Kaizen activities is make sure that not only do we make the improvements, but we can share what those improvements were. And from that point, people across the company can say, well, that was a really cool idea. Maybe I could use that in my area too. So again, we're looking at horizontal communication, not just vertical. And then typically most of us know about 5S, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but we can use red tags in our 5S program, definitely to segregate material. Shadow boards are really popular. Footprints are popular. So you can see examples of knowing where the system wants things placed, a place for everything, everything in its place. Wayfinding is another important way of using visual management. And I find this used a lot, especially in situations like hospitals, namely. So when we're looking at a lean hospital environment, wayfinding is really one of the key things to a customer experience, a patient satisfaction, is that can we find our way around the hospital easy? And most hospitals, especially the older ones, have a series of new buildings and old buildings and new wings. So as you work there, you get to know that, well, that room is in the old wing, or it's in the new wing on the first floor. Well, patients don't understand old from new very much, so it has some difficulty finding around. And I've been in several hospitals in the last couple years, and most hospitals struggle with patients being easy to find their way around. So here are some just good examples of using color and visuals, making it easier of being able to find your way around the hospital. What do you think by looking at these pictures? Do you think that it looks like it's a little bit easier to find your way around for where you want to go? Yeah, I would think so too. So these are the things that we want to learn and improve upon, making sure that the service and the products that we provide have better flow. In this case, we want the better flow of the patients and of the families. Here's a good example of horizontal communication, a broadcast order. In this particular case, this was taken from Hillrom when I worked at the hospital bed company. Just like when cars are going down the assembly line, what model, what features are going to go on this particular unit? Well, hospital beds are no different than cars in the fact that they have many options you can choose from. So how can we visually show that? And we took this from how Toyota was putting the order in front of the vehicle. Well, we put our order in front of the hospital bed, and as you can see very quick with visuals, that you know as an operator on the line what features and options go on this particular model of this bed going down the assembly line. No other real schedules needed at that point. You can see from the visual indicators and apply them to the making of that particular bed as it comes down the line. So actually a pretty good, simple way of Again, horizontal communication. Here's an interesting one that I saw. These are employee passports or employee cards. And on these cards, they have the picture of the employee and they have what their status of skill level is of what areas that they can work in. And you'll notice that there's two racks here. Well, these racks are for first shift and second shift. And as you can see, there's a lot of cards in second shift, and first shift rack on the left is kind of empty. In fact, there's only 4 that are in there. Well, this was taken during first shift. Now, what happens is when the employees come in, they would take their passport or card, and they would grab it from this rack and take it to the machine or work area that they're working and post it by the visual signal on that particular machine area. So from that process, you know that the employee is assigned at a certain area and who's at each work cell. In this particular case, we can walk in using this on visual management. If I was to ask you, well, how's attendance today on first shift? Without really asking anybody, could you tell who's not here and who is here, or do we have a major problem or not? Well, quickly by going at this company, you could look at this rack and say, well, I know there's 4 people that aren't here today. I have a great visual of who's here and who's not. And then these cards have multi-purpose in the fact that it has skill levels. You can tie that to your cross-training matrix. You can also see who are temporary employees or who are full-time employees or who are learning a new process. Again, it's a great visual management system that they used in this particular company. Now, standard work and process. For those of us that are on our lean journey, we know one of the components of standard work besides sequence is a standard work and process. We want to identify how many parts should be in our particular flow. In this particular case, you see a great visual. You know you want first in, first out by the sign, and then the standard work in process is 8 pieces max. So that's our buffer. Great visual. But then, can we improve that? Well, it's possible. Look at this particular application of standard work in process. Here, the standard work in process is defined by the carts. It's not a basket or bin with a fill up as many as you can in this bin. Here, each cart has 12 slots. 12 slots, room for 12 units of production. And by the number of carts that you have with the slots, you control your standard work in process. Employees know through the visual management that when a cart arrives, that means I need to fill it up. That's a signal for me to build. And then when it's full, I don't build anymore. And that actually maintains a good standard work in process system. Again, another good use of visual management to allow the flow. Here's a good example. On this particular line, instead of just having a bin of these bearing parts, they actually put a just PVC tube and they have them stacked. And not only can you stack them so you have standard work in process, they have put a timing on it. If you know that the stack gets down to this level where the red is, you've got 30 minutes of production left. That's how much standard work in process you have available. So then it should kick into the process of how should I start replenishing it. So then another great example of good visual management. Here's another form. You can use, again, the power of the red and the green of showing stocking levels. On this particular wood rack, you know from the visual management, stacked to the green level, which is good. When we start getting to the yellow level down the stack, that we need to start replenishing it. When it's in red, we certainly have to replenish the boards on this rack. Again, very simple. We talked about Kanban cards as one of the traditional examples in a lean journey. Here we have a Kanban board. And in this case, you can see very visually with Kanban cards, you see that, again, the power of red and green of knowing what is a priority, what doesn't have to run, and what needs to run on a simple Kanban board. Do you think that that is a good signal from your impression? Again, with Kanban, there's also a two-bin system. Well, in this particular case, they wanted to make it pretty clear which of the 2 bins do you want to draw stock from. In this particular case, they decided to come up with a big hand with a finger pointing saying, pull here first. So you just point the finger at the stack and say, from this Kanban on 2-bin system, we want you to pull from this side first. That way there's no confusion as to how the Kanban is supposed to work on a 2-bin system. I thought it was kind of a clever way of pointing out what we would think is the obvious, but maybe it's not so obvious. So, but the finger really helps us. Pull here first. What do you think? Now, defect boards, another good example. Here, you want to make it very clear for operators to know what is good and what is bad through the process of what your non-conformings are. So in this particular case, you actually take the physical component and you make a defect board showing these are examples of things that are non-conforming. So instead of just you looking at a written report or a non-conforming descriptions, they can actually see. Not only can they see this, you can use this as a training tool to judge against as saying what's conforming and what's not. Here's an example of a TPM board for preventive maintenance. This actually shows a pretty good board. It's set up for the operator at the station, so it's right next to the machine. You see the TPM map with the pictures. Those showing you examples of where around the machine certain elements or tasks are supposed to be done. So they're indicated very clearly. They charting or trending what activities are done to improve and maintain this machine. You've got the cards down below, so as you find discrepancies or issues, you can certainly tag the machine and send it through the process. So it's a pretty good system showing you how this TPM on this machine works. Taking it further on TPM, if you have the tasks outlined on a work instruction, it's a good idea to go right to the machine and label on the machine where task 1 and task 2 takes place, or how many tasks you ever have to do on a particular machine. So again, you don't have to rely on just the work instruction. The machine right there has the indicators to help you do your TPM. Pretty good and simple solution. Now, one of the things on TPMs is to check in case bolts are getting loose or screws. In this particular case, it is important to have bolts regularly checked and tightened. So how would you do that without touching the bolts? Well, here in this particular case, just using a little paint marker, it shows that once a bolt is in a tight location, you see it's indicated. So here's a visual that shows me, without touching the bolts, that looks like all the bolts are in the right, proper, tight position. Here's another good example following the TPM. A lot of our machine covers hide what's going on in the machine to protect us, yet it doesn't make it very good visually. In this particular case, we had taken the cover off and we put a Lexan cover over the belts and the pulleys. And before, if something was going to go wrong, you'd have to go by noise, or if material's falling out the bottom, or the machine ultimately just breaks down and stops. But in this particular case, maintenance and the operators can both observe with the guard on what is the function of the belt. Is it working? Is it getting worn? Do we have to check it and replace it soon? Everything's visual. It's right there. So a Lexan cover over a machine is a good approach of allowing us to look at the machine without having to take the cover off. Charts. We do a lot of charts in visual management, and one of the things I wanted to show you is you can make charts a little bit fun. In this particular case, I'm going to use one from Japan. Although, again, as I said, I don't speak Japanese, but can you tell a couple things from this chart? First of all, they've got the numbers at the very bottom so you can see what's actually marked, and you can see the numbers marked on the scale. But the cool thing they add was several. First thing I want to point out, too, that you see are the smiley faces and the sad faces. So it's pretty obvious for us that don't speak Japanese that if we have a smiley face, that's a good metric. If it's a sad face, that's a bad metric, or we're hit off target. And then you have the indicator on the left-hand side. They actually show you on the chart with an arrow what direction is good versus bad. Many charts either going up is good or going down is bad, but we don't know, and we have to understand and figure it out. In this particular case, it shows us right there. We don't have to guess. So we can see very quickly which direction we want to go in to have a good indicator. The other good thing is you'll notice that they have the data boxes inside the chart. So not only does it tell you that a bad measure happened that was off their goal or target, but it tells you a little bit more detail, information as to what the parts were and perhaps why. So don't be afraid to put data boxes inside your charts to help explain it. So visually showing the data is great, but how can we enhance the chart, again, to make it very easy and visual? So what do you think about putting data boxes in charts? Here's another good example of visuals. This was next to a metric board, and what they did is put two indicators there, not necessarily using the red and green, but along the same lines. So can you guess which one would be the okay or green, and which one would be a warning or something tending toward an issue? Well, certainly you can see that the fingers with the OK symbol means that that is an OK level. So they would put that next to that particular metric. And if something is saying, well, we need to work on it, there's a warning, we need to look at this really quick, they'll put the other symbol next to it. So you can see across all the metrics which ones that we need to look at, which ones that we can just glance at. Again, really quick visual, you can see which are trending good and which are trending bad. Here's an example of showing before and after Kaizen. So pictures are a great tool in our visual management. So you can see on these Kaizens, this is what the before condition was, and this is what the after condition is with the pictures. So a good, simple way of showing all the improvement activity that's going on in this particular area. And you can just look at the pictures and see with very little words what the activities were going on. A good indicator of showing Kaizen activity. And I like this one, the Kaizen Wall of Fame. I'm a strong, very avid supporter of Kaizen for everybody. And everybody means that we need to improve even just a little bit every day. In this particular case, we have a simple Kaizen process where each employees are asked to make simple improvements to their job. And what they've done is they've taken the before and after pictures and put the employee's picture on the bottom right-hand side, and in the yellow balloon, it makes a little comment from the employee how it made their job easier and better. And from that point, they put all these ideas, these improvements up on the wall, and it's their Kaizen Wall of Fame. So not only have you given recognition for your employees, you're communicating across the whole company what were the improvement ideas and how did it make jobs easier and better. It's a great way of sharing information and communicating, and it's a great visual management tool to show how we're doing on improvement ideas, who's giving us improvement ideas, and what are some of the ideas focused on. Part of our Kanban and our racking system is how do we identify some parts. In this particular case, use the picture of the part on cards instead of just the traditional, this is the part number and this is the name. Try using the picture, and that will show you clearly this is the place where this part goes. Other companies I've seen actually take the physical component and place it on the rack, so you know that that's where this component goes. Again, make it visual, make it easy to understand. In this particular case, here's a material sample board. Maybe this will work in this particular case. We need to understand what all the components go to different areas and what they are. This company decided, well, let's just go ahead and post a material sample board up here with the actual physical examples of the components, and tells you who the vendor is, a little information that's important about that particular components, where it's used, and other information. So it's all shown right there. Again, this is not in a computer somewhere. This is visually shown right there in the stocking rack location. Good example of what a visual management system can help you do by sharing this information. Here's an office supply cart along with the 5S. We have a place for everything. Everything is placed for office supplies. Here is a great indicator of knowing what office supplies that are centrally located, that are shared within this office. We know what the supplies are. We know the home location for them. We know if we need to reorder them. If you'll notice on the side of the cabinet, they actually have reorder cards. So as the quantities get down to a certain level and need to be replaced, the cards can be easily taken and sent in so that you can start the process of replenishment. Another good example of visual management. Here's a traditional before and after Kaizen picture. If you look at the air pressure gauge on the left-hand side, can you tell what the air pressure is? Can you tell if that's good or bad? Is the machine set at the proper air pressure or not? Well, no one really could tell by looking at that. So we had to 5S it, and we had to get information from maintenance to make sure that we understood what the proper air pressure is. And if you'll notice on the right-hand side, yes, that is the exact same gauge. We cleaned it up, and then we put a visual indicator on it. Now, if you were to walk by that, can you answer, is that at the correct air pressure or not? Well, hopefully yes, because of the red indicators, you can see that the needle's between them, so that's a good indicator, quick visual management, that we have the correct air pressure. Again, very simple. Here's an example of standards. Instead of having standards posted above the workplace, they decided to post them on these small little turnstiles where they're posted right next to the work cells. So here with pictures, they have the work instructions, work guidances is what they call them, and again, it's very close and nearby. Here's an example in a hospital where certain areas within the facility do not need to be open to other people. So they have these stop signs or these alert signs. Oh, sorry about that. I think we hear a train coming by. We have these alert signs that tell us on a stop sign that do not enter this area. So in this particular case, it's very visual for us to know that this is a restricted area. Again, good visual indicator that will help prevent people from going in the areas that they don't need to go to. Visual work instructions, as we talked about, are pretty important. This is an example of just a simple work instruction for cleaning a bathroom. And if you read through the pictures, good simple steps that you need to follow to make sure that the bathroom is clean. You don't just say, go clean the bathroom. These are the things that need to be done. It also has a person responsible, the picture of that person, and you can tell from this when was the last date that this was cleaned by. So again, good simple visual work instructions, and it also helps to check to see that it was cleaned when you needed it to be cleaned and when was the last cleaning taking place. Along the same lines, here's one at a particular facility. They have the break room and the kitchen area. Well, to help keep it clean, all the employees get together and make sure that they share that responsibility. So you see a duty roster of who's cleaning what tasks and if it's done or not. So you can quickly see who's done what task if they're on track to completing it. And then what were the tasks that need to be done to clean the kitchen. So again, you see very visually some of the simple tasks that need to be checked. In this particular case, you see an action plan. You have a morning schedule clearly posted. You have team chores posted with people's names and the tasks that they do. You have back orders down below. So again, this is a simple little visual management of understanding what needs to be done. Kaizen activity is another great thing that you want to share on information. Here's an example of value stream maps being posted at a Kaizen activity board, but then you can tell, well, what are the planned activities? What are the current activities we're doing in Kaizen, and how we're doing on our follow-up on Kaizen? So many of us do a good job of doing Kaizen events, but then we're not so good on doing the 30-day or 60-day or 90-day follow-up. Well, here we actually trend how well we do the follow-up on our Kaizen activities, not only just the Kaizen activities that are happening in the future. So anyone could walk up to this board and look to see how the follow-up process is going on our Kaizen activity. Simple and easy to see. Kaizen newspapers is one of the favorite tools I like using when we go on a Kaizen event or other activities. What is the list of Kaizens or to-dos that we need to accomplish during that activity time period? In this particular case, it's a simple flip chart that we take right down to the area, and we list all the Kaizen activities, tasks that need to be done, who's doing them, what the status is, when are they going to be completed by, and do we need help with them? So again, it's a process that makes it very simple for us to see. So anyone knowing that a Kaizen is going on in that particular area can walk up to see what are some of the project tasks that the team's working on and who's working on them and how far along are we on our project as we're going through, say, a typical Kaizen event week. Now those are all pretty good examples of Kaizen, of different visual management. But for a little fun, let's look at this. I'll have to present that the Green Bay Packers are the last year's Super Bowl champions. And for those that may not know or aren't from the United States, football is very popular. And as you may not know, I've been a Green Bay Packer fan since I was 3 years old. So I've been a lifelong fan. And they're having a great season last year and a great season this year. For those that don't keep up with football, they are undefeated still. And this is a picture of Aaron Rodgers, which is the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. So for all the other fans, for other teams, if you want to know what good looks like as far as a good team and a good quarterback, I'd have to present this for visual management. Hopefully you find the humor in that. Okay, let's summarize this a bit. Let's look at visual management, some of the simple things that we hopefully would learn by going through all these examples that we talked about today. Good visual management. Well, the simple tools usually work better. Make it easy to understand. And again, remember our goal is to do this at a glance. More pictures are better. Use less words. Use a combination of pictures and words. How do colors are used? We've seen red and green and yellow. You color code areas. So color coding can be useful in a good visual management system. But the key is to keep them current, keep them working, and use them to improve. And if you notice some of the examples that we had, even though they were pretty good examples, I bet we could sit down and figure out ways to make those visual management indicators even better. So keep improving your visual management system, just like you would improve your process. And your visual management system is a process, so that would mean that we want to improve it too, right? Use your visual management system to sustain your Kaizen effort and also to improve from the baseline. So visual management, I think, is one of the keys to help us to sustain. I again emphasize, think horizontal in your communication. We do a lot of good vertical communication, company newsletters, other things that top-down certainly will communicate. But how can we enhance horizontally across the value stream? How can we use visual management? And if we focus on the horizontal movement of communication, I think we'll see an improvement in our value stream. And lastly, be creative, have fun. As you notice some of these examples here, some of them looked really good. Some were actually made, handmade. It doesn't have to be a computer printout. It could be something that could be handmade. But they were having a creative process of finding a quick, simple, easy way to improve the visual management of the area. And have fun with it. Experiment. If it doesn't work, try something else and keep experimenting. So those are basically the simple summary of what we want to try to accomplish with visual management. Hopefully you've learned from the examples that we have there. And for summary, I just want to thank you for participating in our very first webinar. And hopefully you found some enjoyment by this. We certainly want to do more webinars like this series so we can share some of the ideas that we've seen. And we certainly want to open up some of the questions that you may have had as we've gone through this. So Ron, have we got any questions for today?
Yeah, great job, Mike. So we do. We have a few questions, and we are coming up right on an hour, so apologize for that, but love for everybody to stay on as long as they can. So the first question is, where and how do we define lines between making a primary factory build process more visual without trying to include critical path sub-processes? It's a big one.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Well, if you know or define the lines of your core critical path process, you certainly can use that as your defining point to say, well, we want to concentrate our visuals within this defined line. That would be one way. But then I would ask the question, well, why would you want to prevent the visuals from also going into the subassembly areas? I would, not understanding the process, but question, well, let's challenge if the visual management could be applied to both areas to help improve the flow, because I think that that needs to be worked together to improve the total flow of the process. But then I would just have that person go and look and see what makes sense.
Very good. Here's another one. It's kind of an interesting question. So what comes first, 5S or visual controls, or are they one and the same?
Well, that is a good question. I would think that you would have a 5S process that you would start, and you would have the visual controls that would certainly come across as a result of that. But then again, you could have a visual management system without having a 5S process. If you look at stop signs on the corner of the street, we certainly don't have 5S in government, but we have stop signs to control the flow of traffic. So I think it's a combination. You can certainly have the visual signals in first, but then if you know Lean using 5S, then you can start looking at how we can improve and selectively put better visual signals into our process.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do two more here. So I love the green and red cup visual control you shared. Do you have any other simple, low-cost examples like this?
Oh, great question. Thank you. I'm glad you liked that one. I liked it too. I thought that was really creative and ingenious, and it matches my budget. So yeah, I've got a few other examples there. I can look through my particular slides. I take a lot of pictures through Kaizen activities and look to see if I can find a few more, and we can share them at a future date, and maybe we'll post information available for people to see them as a future process. But there are others out there, yes.
Okay. And last one. So this one, they said they realize it doesn't have necessarily to do with visual controls, but they wanted to know what your thoughts on stand-up desks were.
I'm biased. I love them. I like stand-up desks. For 20 years, I had either the cube or the corner office or the semi-cube office, and had the nice desk or the small desk or the hand-me-down desk, depending on where I was. And just a couple years ago, I switched to trying to go to stand-up desks, and it took a little while, but I love stand-up desks. I think it's great if it helps with the open office and go through to enhance communication and bring people closer together instead of having separate offices. So yes, I'm a fan of open office. I'm a fan of stand-up desks, but I do realize that although I'm a fan of it, not everybody is ready and willing to go with what I consider a healthier way of working by standing up. Provide them with a stool. Don't force people to have to go to stand-up desks until they're ready for it. But certainly I would lead by example and show that I'm doing it and I like it and it works.
Okay, I was just checking one last time to see if any other questions come in, and just got a comment. Lots of great practical ideas, very valuable. So it wasn't a question, but thanks for the comment, Marshall. All right, so well, that's it, folks. We appreciate everybody coming in. We learned a lot. We just to give you a little feedback, we had initially thought, wow, we might get a small turnout for this, and we were just kind of blown away by how many people registered. In fact, we had to kind of upgrade our account to be able to handle the volume. So that was a great problem to have, and so thank you. If you have any other questions or comments or tips, or even if you have ideas for future webinars like this, please send them to us at academy@gembaacademy.com, or you can go to gembaacademy.com and just click on the contact tab at the top of the website, and then it'll come straight to us. But Mike, I wanted to thank you. I know you're a super busy guy with all your consulting, and so really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us, and I look forward to doing it again sometime soon.
Well, thank you, Ron, for this opportunity, and thank you all for taking time out of your busy work to listen to our examples of visual management, and hopefully it was time well spent. But thank you.
All right. We will have this up on a video within the next week. So look for an email if you want to watch it back over or share it with your colleagues. Definitely do that. So thanks, and we'll talk soon.